Hello, it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here today with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you, it might not. Okay, so I'm tapping in here. This feels like a clarifying message that's coming through here from Spirit to assist you in processing a very confusing situation. I'm hearing the word convoluted. I'm hearing a situation that has become very muggy, very foggy, very confusing here. And I'm kind of snapping back to the readings that we have talked about recently. It's like there was a spiritual attack alongside a karmic lesson, you know, and it's added these kind of layers, this film of confusion. And Spirit is wanting to further demystify that, if you will. And Spirit is wanting to zoom in here and talk a little bit about karma and the role that karma is playing here in this situation. But first, it wants me to clarify that for some of you, I do feel like you have some, I kind of do want to use the word twin. I like the word twin for this scenario because it's like twinning, you know, it's like you and another person here could be showing up actually very similar in your energies. You could be showing up very similar in your lessons. And I am hearing the word codependency, and I'm seeing you and this other person like placed in the center of like your own pod or like your own group. So, and I'm hearing the words mother culture, like kind of being like, I just heard prophesied or like spoken like over you, each of you, like in your own way, in whatever this like nest almost is that you've kind of found yourself steeped in, brought up in, marinated in, which tells me there's kind of a correlation here between whichever, like your own little nest that you were brought up in that has a culture to it, that has certain, they're kind of giving me brainwashing, and I literally am seeing a brain being like washed, again, marinated in certain thoughts, concepts, and ideas. And not all of them are true all of the time, but from our limited perspectives as people, it's hard for us to kind of speak about the nuances here of these, of whatever you're being taught and told here to help you navigate life. I think early on in your childhood, this has to do with a family. But again, I'm hearing that word mother culture. So it's some kind of predominant narrative that leads both of you in your own way to dealing with codependency. And this is where, like I'm saying, there's a twinning aspect here between you and this other person. So it could actually be very similar narratives that you have been told, very similar family dynamics that you've been told. But for some of you, it's like the exact opposite. Or maybe there's elements of this where it's like, it's same, but different. There's like, you know, it's definitely similar in terms of the undercurrent. I'm hearing the word cult. It's almost like, and this would be like a family system, or it doesn't have to be like an actual, like what we think of when we think of a cult. There's qualities that point to something being a cult, and it's not just necessarily that something is spiritual or religious in nature. You get what I'm saying? It's like you can have a family that operates more like a cult, or a group that operates more like a cult, but it's not necessarily religious or spiritual. That's not necessarily the defining factor in what makes something a cult or not. So there's kind of a cult following is what I'm hearing around something, some kind of cultural narrative, something that each of you have been steeped in. And again, it might be the same thing for both of you, like some kind of, maybe you're from a similar religion, background, religious upbringing, something like that, but it also could be very, very different. And I think this does have to do with nurturance energy. I'm seeing the moon, like home energy, but it could also have to do with group. So for some of you, it's like it is coming directly from a mother, but for others of you, it's coming from this like mother culture. And I think maybe with the masculine that is involved here, it's more like, it could be the mother thing too, but I am seeing kind of like a culture of men kind of giving very bad advice. Okay, so anyways, Spirit is wanting to clarify that this is kind of going on here between the two of you, and you're both kind of embroiled in your own karmic lessons here with members of this group, and it fosters a kind of codependency. So you're each hooked into whatever this group is, family, it could be a friends group, whatever this is, that you kind of rely on in a certain way for sustenance in some way, whether that's emotional, physical, advice, yeah, so, all of the above. But there's a reliance here, like, and we are a social species, so that's like considered kind of normal and natural, but there are codependent elements going on in this group meant to kind of like hook you in. There also could be like elements of, listen, we all believe this certain thing. This is what binds us together, is that we are this way and we believe this certain thing. And we all kind of have our roles. And if you break outside of that, it sort of ruffles a lot of feathers. Like there could be elements or dynamics of that going on between you and this other person that I'm really seeing. So that actually makes listening to, like, trying to trying to work out the karma between the two of you and trying to understand what has gone on here between the two of you very difficult if the karmas have not been cleared up, because each of you are kind of learning your own karmic lessons. And I think then you've come together here to be a big part of each other's karmic lessons. And it's like you get to be together if you have sort of unentangled yourself, at least like mentally. And it doesn't have to be all the way, I'm hearing. It's like just enough, where you put like enough of a barrier between yourself and whatever this like noxious, overpowering person, because for some it's like literally a mother, or it's somebody here in like a family dynamic that is kind of that negative leader that has also come out here in the readings recently, where they're just, it's very controlling, but maybe in a nurturing way. And I don't know, it's something cyclical, but it's like you need to have put enough space between yourself and whatever that rhetoric is in order to be able to give yourself a shot, at least to be able to kind of see clearly and to see the negative coping mechanisms that have been developed and relied upon, and to see the falsity in the narrative either before it happens, because I feel like there may be some kind of like advice or some kind of, I don't know, something that's deeply affecting your actions towards one another. So, and I think what's being worked out here in the karma between you and this person that you're kind of twinning with has to do with direct communication. That's been coming a lot out in the readings. But it also has to do with breaking free of whatever these structures are that have kept you bound. And I kind of feel like the two of you are going to come together and kind of form a different little nest, like a different little reliance system. And it could be like not even just the two of you. Like obviously this could be a couple situation. You guys could come together. You could form a partnership and have a family, something here like that. But I kind of feel like there are different friends and there are different places that each of you actually like to go, but it's separate from these like enmeshing codependent groups. And actually you guys explore those things kind of like together and those other people, and that actually becomes like your friend group, and you kind of build this other positive web of like a social network and a social circle, and it becomes like really strong, and it's actually very healthy. It's a lot, not that it's perfect or anything, but it's like a lot healthier, and it is built actually like against whatever these kind of other codependent, highly enmeshing, sort of toxic-y groups have in common. And I feel like you and this person that you're twinning with, you both sort of feel like the odd man out in wherever this codependent thing is, which is why I feel like there is this kind of karmic test. And the way that I want to say that is like you're not fully bought in to like whatever this narrative is. And maybe you kind of feel like, well, I mean, I don't really know another way. Especially if this is a family situation, it's like, well, I've never seen anything else. I know, I can sense that there's something about this that's wrong or false, but I don't know what the right way is. So it's like, I'm kind of just doing this because I'm on autopilot. I don't know another way to be, but I'm open. You know, I'm open, or I'm curious to learning another way. And that's part of what's drawing you and this other person, this like high soulmate, this twinning energy between the two of you together, because you're gonna learn that other way or see that other way embodied here in this other person. And I feel like maybe the conversation that you can have, the ways, like even just the two of you sharing your experiences and maybe the polar opposite aspects of your experiences is going to maybe click something in, or it's going to spark some kind of similar interest or like curiosity that is going to then lead you. Again, I see this kind of third group, or this third, that either you're going to build or you're going to take an interest of like, oh, well, do you want to go check that out? And it's actually going to help you both, and that's going to kind of fuse your relationship together, and it's in a healthy way, and you're both going to learn other better, healthier coping mechanisms and have support for yourselves as individuals, but also together as some sort of a unit here. Now, there's kind of a second part to this message. Like I said, Spirit wants to talk about the karmas that are kind of going on here, and they're showing me, you know, Saturn is the planet of karma. I mean, really all planets, like your karmas unfold like using all the planets. But that word karma means action. And Mars is always the planet that I think of that rules over action. So they're tying in karma like with the planet Mars. And they're saying that this has to do with some kind of right and proper action. We talk a lot about Mars, but I think it's so important to understand this, where it's like Mars is considered a malefic. Because it's ruled over by the body, which can be ruled over by like the lower impulses, and it can lead us to building like negative karmas, especially like if that is an unconscious sort of like a space, you know, craving oriented space. And Mars also rules over men, And like I said, I do feel like there might be a group of men that is creating a mother culture here for a masculine energy that is actually very noxious and very toxic, and probably leans into the negative aspects of Mars, the selfishness, the competition, the sexuality. And I just don't think this masculine energy actually resonates with that. But if he's not clearing up that karma, he's not coming across well to this feminine energy, and he looks very much a part of it, at one with it, at peace with it, even though in his soul and in his karmas he's not necessarily. Okay, so he's going to come across one way and he's going to feel another way in his heart, and that's going to create confusion. That's going to create more karmas between him and this feminine energy here that is kind of twinning with him, that they're supposed to be kind of building a bridge here, like to each other. That's part of their karmas, because it's a strong soulmate energy, or however you relate to that. But yeah, that's the kind of negative side here of Mars. But the positive side, when you engage in Mars in a healthy way, Mars has an incredibly purifying quality to it. But it's listening to the higher voice. And Mars is a soldier. So there's always a question of what do you listen to here. And again, I'm going to bring your attention back to those negative groups, that negative mother culture. It might literally be a mother, or it might be somebody in your family, or in a friend group, or somebody here that's you go to for sustenance or mothering or nurturing or something. But I think for some, it's like a group here. And it's built on some kind of neediness. It's predicated on a neediness. It's held together by a neediness. And I don't think that's spoken about. I think that that neediness and insecurity, because neediness comes from a place of weakness or insecurity, right? And we all have those places. I'm not trying to demonize that, right? But we need to deal with those places like directly within ourselves, you know, and not run from it. And again, have the rhetoric that we all have weaknesses, and then it's not something that we need to kind of gloss over or posture, because especially coming from the masculine side, there might be a certain amount of posturing. I think there's some posturing coming from the feminine side as well, but it could be, you're not hurting me, you know. Yes, I'm emotional, and I can see that you're trying to weaponize, you know, my feminine nature, my beautiful heart against me. You're trying to wound me in that space in order to gain some kind of control, because your nasty ass rhetoric has told you that that's something to do, and I can see that you're not strong enough to question that within yourself, but you're not hurting me, even though he very much is. So something's got to give here. That's where the direct communication needs to kind of like come in, and that's that Mars energy that has a purifying effect. And they're linking this back to karma for me, because I feel like part of the karma here is like confusion, because they're leaping now from Mars over to Neptune. Neptune is kind of that fantasy thing, and so there's been like a fantasy that's been indulged, built, and leaned into here by the codependent nests that each of you are in. There's a fantasy that they're kind of trying to pitch you, a way that maybe seems nice, or it makes you feel better or something. But if you actually try to act on that in the real world, it's going to kind of like leave you out in the cold, and you're not going to understand why, because you kind of trusted that rhetoric. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. But this taking the lower path with Mars, the actions, right? The path of this group, the path that maybe feels innate, but you've kind of known isn't exactly right. It leads to confusion between these two twinning energies. It leads to confusion. It adds to layers of confusion. Also, because I feel like this is a direct connection between these two, and it needs to be direct. It needs to be one-to-one. You could potentially be involving people that, again, you're supposed to be breaking away from. And these are people who have kind of a poisoned outlook on life, and who feed you that poison to sort of keep you embroiled, and it's very sabotaging. And I'm not saying that these people are necessarily all that conscious, because it comes from a place of neediness within them, you know, and so it's maybe just kind of subconscious, and everybody's trying to say that it's better, that what's going on is better, you know, making excuses, oh, that's better because we need this. No, they don't, right? So you could potentially, what I'm saying is like be involving more people that are adding like layers and layers of confusion. You're confusing each other, and then that confuses the actions that each of these people are taking, which then further confuses things. It's this kind of like compounding effect, when instead we need to just be simplifying things. We need to be having direct conversations here. And I do think there's something to do with vulnerability and like directness. And then all of a sudden, all this confusion kind of like leaves the space, and that's where Mars has this purifying effect. So I can see people up in their heads here, because there's a guiding philosophy that is actually very codependent, and it's designed to kind of get the hooks in. And I am seeing like Mars is one and Saturn is the other. So and it's causing this kind of stop go Mars Saturn to me is like very gas pedal brake, or like trying to have the gas pedal and the brake on at the same time. It's leading to that between these two people. And I do think there's one that has been around a mother culture that leans predominantly Mars. And I think that probably would be a masculine energy surrounded by bros that are giving him noxious advice that's not actually going to lead him down the path he wants to go down. And then this feminine energy, it's more Saturn. It's more traditional. It's maybe religious. It's maybe, I don't know, obstacles. Saturn is obstacles. And it could have been one is formulated by young men. The other is formulated by old men. That's another thing, like elders in the church or something like that. And that's, I think, the quality that's kind of going on here. But I can see both of these people up in their head because they're trying to analyze their philosophies that they've been told, and they're trying to match that with their actions. Okay, what do I do? How do I navigate this space based on the philosophies that I've been told and that I have been encouraged to embody, which is actually a good first step here, because it's those philosophies that I feel like Spirit's actually trying to kind of untangle. I'm hearing, like, not to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, but just start to deconstruct those philosophies, which is becoming incredibly conscious, and it's making it your own. This is a path towards consciousness. And that path towards consciousness and self-awareness is naturally a path towards each other here, like with these two, but they have to kind of deconstruct their own philosophies. And I'm seeing two people kind of shedding off their armor, like as they're walking towards each other. Like, I'm not trying to do battle with you, like with my philosophy and your philosophy, because your worldview is telling you that I should behave this way, but I don't want to, because my worldview tells me that I should be acting this way. And you're kind of at odds with your worldview, and I'm kind of at odds with my worldview, and we don't know what to do. So do you want to just sit under this tree, have a sandwich, and be a little confused together? And maybe hold hands. Like, that's really kind of the path here towards each other. But if this is you, if you relate to like being on one of these sides of things, it's like you are in your head because you think that it's the thinking energy that's going to provide the clarity. But based on what I just said about karma and the way that karmas are built and unfold here in this specific setup, the purifying energy is coming from action energy. And I'm hearing doing what you want to do. Doing what you feel like you want to do, outside of what the structure, because you have two worldviews that are kind of at odds with each other here. And those worldviews are connected to a group of, I'm seeing kind of Russian nesting dolls. So it's like, yeah, it could be a family that is nestled inside a church group, that is nestled inside a broader culture, so it's like this kind of maybe layered effect even like here between these two people, but it's like very at odds with each other. So that's where it's like same but different. I think the heart of these people is very same, like they're kind of, they're one and the same. And the way this kind of connects back into the tarot, if you're using tarot to help you deconstruct exactly what happened here, it can get confusing as to who is who and what is what, because I think maybe other people were involved here in this situation. I'm hearing that were like villains, or they kind of recognized, again, all of this is so subconscious, because these beliefs have been embedded, not just in the two of you, but like in other people. It's so subconscious that there's a sensing of danger around the other person. That's in like these two like soulmates that are kind of twinning. There's a sensing of danger that's coming from the other people here in this group. So there's this unconscious drive to sabotage it, because they kind of feel, I'm hearing like from the Lion King, it's like, I can see what's happening. What? And they don't have a clue who. They'll fall in love. And here's the bottom line. Our trio's down to 2. Oh. So it's like there's people here that want to hang on to both of these people, and they sort of recognize the other person as a threat. They don't even have had to have met the other person. They just sort of know the way this person's thinking, the way this person is talking about them, the way that they're confused. They recognize this kind of threat. And so they're kind of subconsciously trying to sabotage things. So they're giving poor advice, or they are in some way. And I don't think that they're trying to harm the other person, or they're trying, it's just that it's a threat to have these people break free. And that's really the karmas that are going on here. You've got this jailbreak is what I want to say. And it feels like a mental prison and a mental trap, and a being in a group that's kind of in enemy territory for both of these people. Like, it's not natural. They could have literally gotten like captured in a past life and put like, I don't know, like put into this culture that they just don't resonate with. And now in this life, they've incarnated as family or friend or something. But again, it's like their soul knows that they don't belong there. And it's, yeah, I had a vision one time, and it was this witch doctor lady that I'm pretty sure was me. And we were both, it was a meditation. It was a guided meditation, and she had like a bone through her nose and everything. And I'm sure I looked like a coiffed poodle. Like she was like, "What have they done to you?" Anyways, it's neither here nor there because that dream space is like very metaphorical. But she was like, "It's making you sick. Spit it out." And she just hit me on the back. And you know, it was like it was tied into culture. It was like the foods that I was eating, the ideas, the philosophies that had been like kind of poisoning my mind. She's like, "Spit it out," and she just hit me on the back really hard until I was coughing things up. You know, and that's what I feel like is going on like between these two people. Like it's something that they feel like they need to cling on to for acceptance, for sustenance, for some kind of physical or emotional security, but it's making them sick. And there needs to be a bravery. There needs to be a willingness. I'm seeing that Aries energy. Again, Aries is such an auspicious sign, but there needs to be the bravery of being independent, deciding to break free of whatever that is. Whether that is distinguishing yourself in a debate kind of energy, not that you need to prove yourself or your beliefs are, again, with this codependent group energy, you're going to feel ganged up on and your beliefs are nobody else's business. And if you need time to sort out your beliefs, it's like, these are kind of people, you'll notice the way that they interact with you. Your beliefs are like fair game for everybody to be involved in, but their beliefs are off the table. Like that's not allowed for, you know, because they are on the right, because there just happens to be like a consensus or a cohesion here. So there needs to be this like desire to be independent. And I think this is a paradox point. Ironically, that choosing to be independent and to go your own way is going to match you up here with the other person. And it's like, there's a timing thing. And I feel like spirit is kind of like, listen, if you want off this train, like, you know, here's how you level up. Here's like the next step. And both of you, I feel like, have kind of a missing piece that you've been looking for, but you're not exactly realizing it here like in the other person. But it's like once you get in proximity and you kind of get sniffing around each other here, and if you can build a kind of vulnerability space where you can talk about your confusion, because you can't talk about it in these codependent groups, and you both know that, but I think you can talk about it with each other, and it's like pretty open, and there's nuggets. Like this is very much a pairing that one person's going to say something and it's going to be like, "Oh my God, you're right. That was what I was looking for." And I wanted it to come from this codependent group because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted us all to see the light together, but it's coming from you. And that makes sense. And when I integrate that, actually, I feel better. Like it brings a sense of healing in, you know, like a poison is kind of like leaving the body. But I just want to bring this back to the way this affects, I think, exploring this connection in tarot is like, you don't really know who the other person is if there hasn't been direct communication here and some kind of purifying action, and distinguishing yourself here from the rhetorics of these like codependent groups. It actually makes it hard to see the other person clearly that actually might resemble you. So it's like, well, you're pile number 2. Well, your other person is pile number 2 as well. It's just they've associated with a group that makes it hard to tell if that's who they are. And they're involved in that, but they are not fully involved in it. It's this other thing that I've been trying to describe this whole time of like, I mean, I just don't know another way. But you can, and don't make this fit if it's not your message, because I feel like you can sort of sense that here about the other person, that it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, you kind of believe that, but I sense that there's something different in you. Like, just don't, I hope that makes sense. And it's not going to be every single time in tarot. Like, obviously there's going to be some piles where you're like, okay, this is definitely, you know, helping me. It's helping to like distinguish whatever. But, and that's part of the karmas though, is like not knowing who a person is because they didn't distinguish themselves as an individual enough for you. They still just went along with, whatever this group sort of was. So I don't want to make this any more confusing than it already is, because I feel like we're tapped into a situation here. Again, I want to use that word twinning. I feel like there was an escape plan. Yeah, and I'm hearing that song, Labor. It's like, this is an escape plan. Carefully timed it, so let me go and dive into the wave below. And I feel like that's obviously a very gendered song, because it talks about the woman, like, you make me do too much labor. Like, the whole song is like talking about how, yeah, who fetches the water, who fixes up the gables, who does this, who does that. I feel like each of your codependent groups here actually relies on you quite a bit to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Or there's a lot of expectation placed on you specifically because you're a sparkly little thing here that does like kind of stand out. And they kind of, I feel like you're also the one to be persuaded, like, because you are a nuanced thinker, you are more broad, you are more complex, and it's very reductionist. You have to be more reductionist to buy in fully. That's really what it comes down to. To buy in fully to whatever these groups are, you have to be more reductionist. You have to be less developed in your mind. You have to be less developed as a person to just fully buy into it and to sit comfortably in fully not buying into something here. but neither of you are that way, and you're singled out within the groups that you're involved with that want to do some kind of like debate, philosophical tango with you in order to keep you stuck, but it's fighting that urge for you to peck your way out of your own shell and towards this other person here. And that's that spirit energy, like I carefully timed it to get off this island. This is an escape plan. It's spiritually, this is an escape plan. Yeah. So the confusion is a part of the karma here that either continues to build and compound between the two of you, or because of some kind of rectifying, purifying, high vibrational action. And again, Mars is that soldier energy, following the light of the divine is what I'm getting. And Mars I always associate with Arjun, who is a soldier, and he's like very much listening to Krishna, and because of that, it purifies his actions. Like his actions are almost not his own. He's taking the corrective actions like of the divine, and he is not therefore accumulating karma. You see? Yeah. And Mars, Neptune here is kind of the energy of sickness. So, yeah, and I'm hearing that song like Down with the Sickness, but there could be some kind of sickness, spiritual sickness, or sickness, like it could be, especially like on this masculine side of things with the Mars energy, that could be like schmegdual illness. This could be drinking. This could be, but then Neptune on the positive aspect of things is spirituality. It's finding spirituality. So it's like either a descent energy or it's a strong ascent energy here. And I feel like that is and then on this, I think what's the feminine side of things, that's that Neptune-Saturn energy. Neptune-Saturn can be like after kind of a major negative event that like affects more than one person. So something here after some sort of negative major event that affects more than one person, this feminine may find herself, and it may lead to some kind of spiritual awakening here. But that's, and I'm seeing that in a triangle. We've got Saturn here, I think, representing the feminine, and like that's the codependent flavor. Then we've got Mars representing the masculine, that's the codependent flavor. And then we've got Neptune at the crown of that triangle energy above. And it's almost maybe victim, rescuer, or persecutor, or I don't know, it's that weird triangle. Could be third party here. Yeah, third party could come in on this Neptune side of things. Third party could be very... This could be a drunken third party situation, because especially if there's not direct action being taken here, it's going to confuse the actions here of people, and they're more susceptible to buying into fantasy here from a third party, that Neptunian energy, because they're confused about the other person here. That's a possibility. But also third party could be somebody very spiritual that comes in, especially if like you are on the ascent. If one party, especially this feminine, is like on the ascent after a big negative blowout that affects maybe more than one person, everybody involved here in this situation, third parties, this other masculine, or take it how it resonates with the gender stuff, then I feel like, again, there's maybe a very spiritual experience or a spiritual partner. And I just want to remind you, I know this reading's gone on forever. Throughout history, God has been referred to as the soulmate. God has been referred to as the twin. Jesus is even referred to as the twin in a lot of texts, because he's so Ashvini. Ashvini is a twin. And if you really go down the rabbit hole of like, well, who is Jesus's twin? Is there any mention of that? You, baby. You are Jesus's twin. Me. I'm Jesus's twin. Drink from the teachings of my mouth and become like my twin, he says. And become my twin. So we are unifying with God, which is the spiritual experience, becoming one with God. And I feel like this is divinely sanctioned, the goings on here, in order for this kind of higher healing, this higher learning, this unification. It's leading you closer to God. But you've got a rival, I think, this codependent, it's very devil energy what you both are in. And you might not recognize it as that because you're associating it with moon energy. You're associating with home, sustenance, nurturing, a type of nurturing here, but it's cyclical nurturing. So it's not always nurturing, and I do think that you can recognize that, both of you. It's not always nurturing. Actually, it causes a bunch of drama. But then it's kind of maybe that toxic relationship cycle. So if you get partners that are you meet in this space and are of this space, this is going to be that very maybe toxic relationship cycle. It might be fantasy. Yeah, so somebody could introduce somebody in a bar, but they're introducing them to a fantasy. They're trying to make this person seem better than they actually are, or they're pitching some kind of fantasy. And the fantasy is hooked into the codependent nature of these groups and the fantasy energy. Okay, I know this has gone on forever. I'm getting one more thing. with that mother culture energy. And I feel like this could have played out here between these like two twinning energies, because I'm seeing the Fool card, and it's giving me the vibe of like somebody turning like 18. They're like a new adult, you know, and it's like, okay, I've been raised up my whole life. And I'm ready to take this new step into this new beginning. Now, it doesn't have to be that. This just feels like, okay, and I'm ready to take this new step into this new experience of my life. And that could be like, okay, now I want to be in a committed relationship. Now I want to go to college or whatever this new step is. And it's like, and I feel ready to do that because I feel like I've digested the teachings of whatever this codependent group is, that they're believing has their best interests at heart, and they're believing that the world is the way that they were taught that it is. And then in this experience, I feel like they take very confidently that leap of faith energy. That's what that Fool energy is. And they were happy and they were excited and they were yee, and they take that step confidently, thinking that they were going to hit solid ground because it was in accordance with whatever fantasy these groups have. And I'm using the word fantasy because it's not in harmony with real life. And so, but they think it is. And even this codependent group believes that it is, I think. But they were really sold a fantasy. So they take that step and then everything goes dark. And they're like, wait, what? And then I'm hearing, they're like, I'm seeing that little Fool energy, kind of everything goes dark, and they're like, Mom? And then it's that feeling of being utterly alone and hearing like your voice kind of reverberate back. It's like, something didn't go as planned. They took that first step, and then whatever they were pitched by this group, they were like, yeah, and then it's going to unfold this way and this way and this way, and then just nothing. Like something maybe abruptly ended. It put them in like some kind of like dark space, and they were like, Mom? And it literally could be that there's like a very manipulative mother figure here, whether it's a mother or just, again, somebody providing sustenance, somebody providing advice in this scenario, comfort that they always kind of rush back to for some kind of guidance. And that person's nowhere to be found. And if this is a person, that is an extremely manipulative person that knows they want to keep this person hooked to them. And they know when to kind of disappear because it gives them kind of plausible deniability. Because they can be like, no, well, my advice wasn't wrong. Like, I wasn't there. You need me to hold your hand like every step of the way. Like it was just this, this, and this. And even if this person that they're trying to hook calls them out, even in front of another group of like, no, it didn't actually work like that. It's like, yeah, but I told him this, and then I went away for like 3 seconds and then like couldn't handle it on his own. And then that kind of brainwashing is meant to kind of embed itself into that person. Like, well, I guess I just can't do anything on my own. When in reality, that was a setup. This is a stick up. And so whenever their advice falls through, like that person's nowhere around. But it proved itself the wrong advice. And for some, this is like a group, like I said, a culture that was saying, oh yeah, do this, go this way, then this will happen. And again, there's no guidance. That rhetoric, that culture, there was no guidance for like what happens if that's not the case, because it isn't reality. It's just some fantasy that they were, bought into. And again, they're just kind of like left out in the cold, and it's like, oh, well, better next time, better luck next time. And then again, they get to hold, that sabotaging energy gets to remain hidden with the Neptune energy of like fantasy. And then there could be even blame associated. Well, something was wrong with that person because it should have followed exactly this, so you're better off. No, you missed your healing opportunity. It revealed itself that something here was a lie. So, okay, that's all I have. I hope this message resonated. Again, we're entering this very convoluted space. I just heard The Convoluted Universe, so that's a book maybe some of you would be interested in. But yeah, this is kind of a convoluted space. And whenever we interact here and like try to kind of poke into it, it can be hard to describe. So I hope that made sense for those of you that this message was meant to reach. And best of luck. If that resonated, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.